On the morning of February 8, 1990, the Guangzhou Police Department received an emergency call from the Tianhe police station. A street cleaner had discovered the body of a woman in an unusual position, thrown by the side of Dunhe Road. The victim was a young woman, approximately 25 years old. According to the preliminary assessment of the police, she could either be a local resident or from a neighboring province. Forensic examination confirmed that the victim had been sexually assaulted before her death. The cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation caused by a thin object resembling a fishing line. After killing the victim, the perpetrator continued with cruel actions, cutting off sensitive parts of the victim's body. Her underwear and stockings were stuffed into her private parts, a bizarre detail indicating the killer's perverse motive. Faced with the chilling crime scene, the public began to ask, what kind of motive could drive the perpetrator to commit such a heinous act? Like and subscribe to our channel to uncover the mystery behind this shocking case. At around 6 a.m. on February 8, 1990, a street cleaner working along Dunhe Road noticed a hand protruding from the bushes, about 10 meters from the main road. At first, he thought it was just a drunk person who had collapsed by the roadside after a long night. Curious, he approached, only to be horrified when he realized it was not a drunk person, but the lifeless body of a woman lying motionless in the wild grass. The victim's clothes were disheveled, her pupils were dilated, her mouth was open wide, her tongue sticking out, and her body was curled up in a fetal position. A sight that would send chills down anyone's spine. The street cleaner quickly called the police to report the crime. Less than 15 minutes later, local police arrived at the scene, cordoned off the area, and began collecting evidence. Based on the victim's physical characteristics, the police estimated that she was around 25 years old. The victim's body was partially concealed by wild grass, and her wrists showed signs of restraint by a rope. Her fingertips had bruises and scratches, indicating that she had struggled fiercely while being attacked. However, the police noticed that the crime scene lacked signs of a struggle, suggesting that the victim might have been murdered elsewhere before her body was moved to this location for disposal. The autopsy results indicated that the victim had been dead for about 6 hours before being discovered, meaning the murder took place around midnight on February 7, 1990. This suggested that the killer acted late at night, taking advantage of the deserted streets to commit the crime unnoticed. At the crime scene, the police found traces of a man's shoe prints, but no signs of any vehicle tracks. This could indicate that the perpetrator had transported the body using some means before leaving the scene on foot. Recognizing the severity of the case, the Guangzhou Police Department quickly established a special task force. The police immediately launched 2 main investigative directions. First, they aimed to quickly identify the victim, gather information about her identity, residence, and anyone related to her. Next, they narrowed down potential witnesses by interviewing locals to find anyone displaying suspicious behavior. However, both initial investigative directions yielded no positive results. No one recognized the victim, there were no missing person reports matching the description, and no witnesses saw anything suspicious the night before. This raised the possibility that the victim was not a resident of Guangzhou but may have come from elsewhere. Additionally, the area where the body was found was a deserted road with almost no pedestrians at night. Notably, early in the morning, only a few vehicles passed through, so the body may have been left there late at night, just before dawn. However, the police found no tire marks or any vehicle traces near the scene, complicating the investigation. The perpetrator may have stopped the vehicle some distance from the crime scene and then carried the victim's body into the grass. A year passed, but the case remained unsolved and gradually fell into stagnation. The victim's identity was still unknown, and no relatives came forward to claim the unidentified body. The police began to fear that if no breakthrough was made, the case might be forgotten. But that fear did not last long, because exactly 1 year later, on February 10, 1991, another case occurred, reigniting public interest. On a road in the outskirts, residents discovered the body of a young woman, around 20 years old, with similar signs to the February 8, 1990 case. Less than 6 months later, another female body was found in the suburban area near Guangzhou, once again showing the same gruesome method of killing. According to the autopsy results, the victim had been killed before being dismembered. The perpetrator not only killed, but also dismembered the victim in a crude and unprofessional manner. Police estimated that the perpetrator took between 2 to 3 hours to dismember the body. By August 1991, after the third case occurred, Guangzhou police realized they were dealing with a real serial killer. At that time, DNA testing was not widely available. Only major cities like Guangzhou, Beijing, and Shanghai had the resources to conduct such analyses. However, forensic results led to a breakthrough. The semen samples collected from all 3 crime scenes were an exact match, confirming that the same perpetrator was responsible for all 3 murders. This case raised serious concerns, as the perpetrator did not stop after each murder, but showed a tendency to continue committing crimes. While the investigation was still ongoing, a 4th case unexpectedly occurred in October. The victim was a woman around 20 years old, whose body was tightly wrapped in a burlap sack. However, in this case, the police discovered a key witness. This witness was a local resident who reported seeing a small truck parked near the crime scene for an unusually long time on the night before the body was found. What caught the police's attention was the description of the driver. A middle-aged man with suspicious behavior who had been seen frequently in the area at night in recent weeks. Notably, the truck had no rear license plate, indicating that the driver had deliberately removed it to avoid identification. The police immediately launched a search for the suspicious truck, reviewing toll booth records, traffic cameras on major roads, and surrounding areas. Besides the truck, a burlap sack discarded near the scene was also considered a crucial piece of evidence linked to the suspect. In early March 1992, the Guangzhou Police Department launched a large-scale manhunt determined to track down the serial killer. Over 30,000 leaflets were printed and distributed, including images of the burlap sack containing the victim's body, a plea for public information, and warnings about potential danger. At the same time, police were ordered to investigate over 3,800 grain warehouses and hemp textile factories across Guangdong province and neighboring areas to trace the origin of the burlap sacks used for disposing of the victims. The investigation lasted for months. Over 4,600 burlap sacks were sent to the Agricultural Science Institute for analysis, and 1,686,000 fingerprints were examined. Finally, police managed to collect the suspect's DNA, but they were still unable to match it to a specific identity. In July 1992, the Guangzhou Public Security Bureau identified a soldier from Garrison Unit 6807 named Jiang Qide as a potential suspect in one of the cases. Jiang was immediately arrested, but after interrogation and forensic testing, he was proven innocent. Although the arrest did not yield the expected results, it led police to reassess the entire case. They realized that the perpetrator had distinct characteristics that had not been fully considered before. Based on the locations where bodies were dumped, police narrowed down the suspect's work or residence to the Xinjiao town area of Haizhu District, Guangzhou. Since all the victims were women, police hypothesized that the killer's motive stemmed from hatred towards women. By analyzing patterns from previous cases, criminal psychologists determined that the suspect was likely between 20 and 40 years old. All the murders involved brutal treatment of the victims' bodies and the insertion of foreign objects, suggesting that the perpetrator had sexual behavioral disorders. At all crime scenes where bodies were disposed of, police found tire tracks, indicating that the perpetrator used a vehicle to transport the victims. Upon re-examining the crime scenes, forensic experts discovered a critical detail. Although some victims' clothes were removed, they still wore jewelry. Based on this discovery, police decided to change their investigation strategy, shifting their focus to jewelry stores in the area. The jewelry worn by the victims looked like real gold, but was actually gold-plated alloy. This raised an important question. Why were all the victims wearing fake jewelry? In Guangdong, women generally care about appearances, and wearing fake jewelry is uncommon. Upon deeper investigation, police discovered that a group of women often wore fake jewelry to avoid being robbed. Notably, they were mostly women working in nighttime entertainment venues. The perpetrator might have targeted prostitutes or women who frequently appeared in red light districts. Most of the victims did not have household registrations in Guangzhou, many used fake names, and they had no contact with their families. So no missing person reports were filed. Although identifying the victim's profession was a major breakthrough, police still could not find the perpetrator's identity. This caused the case to once again reach a deadlock, becoming an unsolved mystery. On the morning of September 19, 1994, Shijiao Town's police chief, Luo Shubiao, received an emergency report from a young woman named Huang Yanhong. She reported that on the previous night, she had narrowly escaped being murdered by a strange man at a train station. Huang Yanhong recounted that she had come to Guangzhou seeking a job, but as soon as she got off the train, her wallet was stolen by a pickpocket. By that time, it was already 11 p.m., and she found herself stranded at an unfamiliar train station without any money. Suddenly, a small truck pulled up near her. The middle-aged man inside rolled down the window and asked if she needed a ride. Seeing her hesitation, he took out an old police uniform, showed it to her, and claimed that he was an officer offering her a free ride. Initially, Huang Yanhong thought she was lucky to have met a kind person. But as the truck drove into increasingly dark and desolate roads, she began to feel uneasy. Before coming to Guangzhou, she had heard about the serial murders occurring in the city. The thought gradually surfaced in her mind, making her clutch her jacket tightly as her heartbeat quickened. As the vehicle continued driving into a remote village, the darkness engulfed the road ahead. By now, her fear had reached its peak. Unable to wait any longer, Huang Yanhong risked opening the car door, jumping out and running for her life. Behind her, hurried footsteps echoed. The man was chasing after her. She ran towards a nearby garbage dump, trying to stay calm and hide in a dark corner. Her breath was rapid, but she held it in, hoping he would leave. After about 2 hours, thinking the coast was clear, she slowly stepped away. But unexpectedly, the man was still standing there, silently waiting for her to reappear. He lunged at her, grabbed her, and attempted to kill her on the spot. At that moment, car headlights flashed from a distance, and a vehicle suddenly drove past the small road. Afraid of being caught, the man immediately released her and fled into the night. After calming herself, Huang Yanhong immediately went to the police station to report the crime. Police launched an investigation right away. Through screening and analyzing testimonies, they identified the prime suspect as Luo Shubiao. When compared with the witness, Huang Yanhong immediately identified Luo Shubiao as the man who attacked her. In May 1995, police raided Luo Shubiao's house. What they found inside made everyone shudder. Dozens of women's clothing items were scattered around, along with blood-stained personal belongings hidden in drawers. More horrifyingly, when the police broke open a locked metal cabinet, they found preserved human body parts inside. DNA testing confirmed that these body parts belonged to at least 17 previous murder victims. Scattered throughout the room were mannequins or human-like figures dressed in clothes stolen from the victims, as if Luo was recreating his gruesome crimes. All the evidence collected confirmed Luo Shubiao was the serial killer that police had been hunting for years. After being arrested, Luo Shubiao admitted to killing a total of 17 victims over 4.5 years. His wife, Lu Meiting, had no knowledge of his brutal crimes. To understand his motives and the origins of his cruelty, investigators traced Luo Shubiao's past, uncovering a dark childhood and twisted thoughts that shaped his path to crime. Luo Shubiao was born on August 20, 1954, in Guangzhou, into a poor working-class family. He was an only child, introverted, and had few friends. Since middle school, he had engaged in theft, frequently stealing from classmates and neighbors, but was never caught. After graduating, he trained as a carpenter but could not hold a steady job, often quitting midway. In 1974, at the age of 20, Luo was arrested for theft for the first time and sentenced to 2 years of re-education through labor. In early 1977, Luo sneaked into the Home Appliance Research Institute intending to steal, but was caught by a female employee named Fen Liyun. Fearing arrest, he murdered her with an iron rod and then violated her corpse. However, since there were no witnesses and the police found no clear evidence, he escaped punishment. In 1979, Luo was arrested again for theft and sentenced to 3 years of re-education. While in prison, he exhibited severe, deviant behavior, including secretly stealing underwear from female inmates and guards. After being released in 1982, Luo married Liu Meiting and had 2 children. During the early years of marriage, Luo seemed to change, working diligently and becoming a model husband and father. During the day, he worked as an interior designer for a private company. At night, he worked as a truck driver, transporting grain within Guangdong province, a job that allowed him to travel frequently without raising suspicion. However, this change was just a facade. Internally, his mind was becoming increasingly twisted and perverse. He frequently watched extreme violent pornography, particularly obsessed with serial murders, such as the case of Lam Korwan, a Hong Kong killer known for dismembering his victims. These twisted thoughts drove him to seek ways to satisfy his deviant desires. At first, Luo tried to suppress his urges by collecting discarded mannequins from fashion stores. He dressed them, applied makeup, and used them to satisfy himself. But that was not enough. On the night of February 7, 1990, after driving around Xinzhou for 2 hours, he picked up a prostitute and took her to Pazhou Dairy Farm, a deserted area with no passersby. When the woman resisted fiercely, he strangled her with a fishing line, subduing her until she stopped breathing. After she became motionless, he then violated her corpse. This was his first murder, marking the beginning of his horrifying killing spree. After committing the gruesome act, Luo Shubiao dumped the victim's body by the roadside on Dunhai Street. Returning home, he was engulfed by the fear of being caught. The next day, he returned to the crime scene to check whether the body had been discovered. However, after a long time without any police movement, he gradually realized that they were only focusing on investigating people close to the victim. This allowed him to escape suspicion, giving him the confidence to continue his crimes. From February 1991, Luo Shubiao continued his crimes, always striking at night. He used a truck to transport the bodies home, hiding them in the attic, which became the site of his gruesome acts. There, he dismembered the victims, removed certain body parts, and even deliberately left traces to taunt the police. After satisfying himself, Luo stuffed the victims' bodies into sacks, oil drums, or wooden crates and dumped them in remote areas of Xinzhou town. One time, while disposing of a body, his wife, Liu Meiting, accidentally witnessed the horrifying scene. Luo quickly made up a story. He told her that it was a person who had died in a traffic accident that he had accidentally hit, and if the truth got out, he would go to jail. Shaken by her husband's plea, Liu Meiting reluctantly helped him conceal this horrifying secret, unaware that her husband was a serial killer. After each murder, Luo meticulously recorded the victim's physical characteristics, their clothing, their reactions, his physical experiences, his emotions, and the process of disposing of the bodies. He kept the diary as a trophy, frequently rereading it to relive the gruesome memories. Upon hearing that law enforcement was tightening the investigation, Luo panicked and immediately destroyed his original records, but later rewrote them in a coded format. On the night of May 25, 1992, Luo was arrested by Tianhe District Police on charges of soliciting prostitution. He was sent to a labor camp for 6 months. There, he read the investigative report from the City Public Security Bureau about the serial murders. Realizing that the police were getting very close to solving the case, Luo decided to escape from the labor camp. He stopped killing for 6 months to avoid detection. However, in March 1994, he could no longer control himself and resumed his crimes, killing 4 more prostitutes before being arrested in September of the same year. On January 18, 1995, Luo Shubiao was tried at the Guangzhou Intermediate People's Court. With overwhelming evidence, he was sentenced to death for murder. 2 days later, on January 20, 1995, Luo Shubiao was executed by firing squad, ending his horrific 4-year killing spree. The case was closed with widespread public approval. Many believed that the sentence was completely justified given his crimes. The victims' families expressed their sorrow, but also felt a sense of relief that justice had been served. Thank you for following this story. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel to avoid missing more horrifying and mysterious crime cases. Remember, no matter how terrifying the truth is, it must be. Peter Kürten, known as the Vampire Killer or the Monster of Düsseldorf, was once the terror of the German people. By day, he was a middle-aged man with a harmless appearance, but when night fell, he became a cold-blooded and ruthless serial killer. From 1929 to 1930, at least 9 people were murdered, but police suspected the actual number was much higher. He had no fixed type of victim. Anyone walking alone at night could become his target. But what turned Peter Kürten into a bloodthirsty monster? More importantly, how did he commit his crimes? Do not take your eyes off the screen. This video will reveal chilling secrets and the darkest, most dangerous corners you have never seen. Like and subscribe to our channel to uncover the mysteries of Germany's most terrifying two-faced killer. On May 26, 1883, Peter Kürten was born into a poor family, the son of an alcoholic couple in Mülheim, Cologne, Germany. Before Peter Kürten was born, his parents had 2 children, but both died very young. As a result, he became the eldest child in the family, a position that unintentionally made him his father's #1 abuse victim. Peter Kürten's family lived crowded in a tiny apartment with only 1 bedroom. His father was a violent man who frequently abused his wife and children, especially when he was drunk. At the age of 13, Peter Kürten witnessed his father forcing his mother or sister into deviant acts right in front of the other family members. This event is believed to be a major turning point in his life, leaving a profound impact on Peter Kürten's psychology. In 1894, Peter Kürten's father was sentenced to 15 months in prison for repeatedly abusing his daughter. Kürten's mother decided to separate and took the children to Düsseldorf to start a new life. However, after his release from prison, he returned and continued living with his wife and children. The people in the neighborhood where Peter Kürten grew up had little impression of him. They rarely saw him cheerful or sociable like other children. He was quiet and withdrawn. Throughout his teenage years, Kürten repeatedly ran away from home, wandering the streets and associating with delinquents. At the age of 13, Peter Kürten started dating a girl his age. He longed for love and connection. However, due to his inability to express affection and his occasional extreme behavior, Peter Kürten was harshly rejected. To satisfy his deviant desires, Kürten engaged in inappropriate acts with sheep, pigs, and goats in a local stable. Later, Peter Kürten claimed to feel the most excited when attacking them right before the climax. In 1897, at the age of 14, Kürten dropped out of school. Kürten's father advised him to learn a trade and guided him toward a career in car repair. However, after 2 years of working, Kürten stole a total of 300 marks from his employer and fled to Koblenz. There, Peter Kürten began a short-lived relationship with a prostitute who was 2 years older than him. By 1899, at the age of 16, Kürten ran away from home because he could no longer endure the beatings from his father. Peter Kürten was classified as a delinquent and had to go to prison multiple times for theft. Only 3 months after being released from prison in 1899, Kürten resumed his theft activities. On May 25, 1913, while breaking into a tavern in Mülheim am Rhein, he came across a 9-year-old girl named Christine Klein sleeping in bed. Kürten overpowered the child and then used a pocket knife to injure her. Kürten felt exhilarated as he watched the red liquid flow from the wound, dripping onto the floor next to the bed and onto his hands. The next day, Kürten returned to Cologne and went to a tavern opposite the place where he had murdered Klein, intending to listen to the locals' reactions to the crime. In the weeks following Klein's funeral, Kürten occasionally visited Mülheim am Rhein to visit the child's grave. He admitted feeling aroused whenever he touched the soil covering the grave. During the trial for Christine Klein's case, Klein's uncle was suspected due to a prior argument with the victim's parents. However, he was exonerated and released due to a lack of evidence. In July 1913, Peter Kürten broke into a house in Düsseldorf with the intent to commit theft. He discovered Gertrude Franken, a 17-year-old girl, sleeping in bed. Kürten murdered the victim and quickly escaped without leaving any traces. When World War I began, Kürten was conscripted into military service, but unable to adapt to Mila discipline, he deserted. Shortly after, in 1921, he was imprisoned again for crimes related to sexual harassment, violence, and theft. The violent environment in prison made Kürten even more brutal and out of control. After being released from prison, Kürten moved to Altenburg, Germany, and lived with his sister. Through his sister, Kürten became acquainted with a woman 3 years older than him named Auguste Scharf. She was the owner of a candy shop and had previously worked as a prostitute. Previously, Scharf had been convicted in connection with the death of her fiancé. Initially, Kürten posed as a former prisoner of war to approach Auguste Scharf. 2 years later, Peter Kürten and Auguste Scharf got married. Kürten secured a stable job and also became an active trade union official. In 1925, Kürten and Scharf returned to Düsseldorf, where Peter Kürten had affairs with 2 women, a maid named Tiede and a servant named Mek. In their relationships with Peter Kürten, Tiede and Mek often felt excessively controlled. Unable to endure it any longer, Tiede reported Kürten to the police, claiming that he had assaulted her, while Mek also accused him of abuse. Shortly after, Kürten was sentenced to 8 months in prison for coercion and threats. He served 6 months, with the condition that he leave Düsseldorf. Later, Kürten successfully appealed and was allowed to remain in the city. In Düsseldorf, Peter Kürten began a spree of continuous crimes, plunging the city into terror and suffering for an extended period. On February 3, 1929, Kürten followed a middle-aged woman named Apollonia Kuhn. Waiting until Kuhn reached a deserted road, he suddenly lunged at her, grabbed the lapel of her coat, and shouted, "Do not resist! Do not scream!" Kürten then dragged her into nearby bushes and attacked her with a sharp object, inflicting 24 wounds. Apollonia Kuhn survived, but could not remember the face of her attacker. A few weeks later, on February 8th, the Düsseldorf City Police discovered the body of a 9-year-old girl named Rosa Oliger burned beneath a fence. 5 days later, on February 13th, Kürten murdered a 45-year-old mechanic named Rudolf Scheer in the Flingern Nord suburbs, causing 20 severe wounds, primarily to the head, back, and eyes. After the police discovered Scheer's body, Kürten returned to the crime scene to approach the investigating officers. He deliberately provided false information to a detective, claiming he had heard about the case through a telephone call. Despite the age and gender differences of the 3 victims, all 3 attacks occurred at dusk in the Flingern district of Düsseldorf. Each victim was attacked with a knife in a successive manner, with at least 1 wound inflicted on the temple area. Additionally, the police discovered that the perpetrator exhibited bizarre behavior, savoring every drop of the red liquid flowing from the victim's neck wound after the attack. Moreover, the perpetrator's random selection of victims led criminologists to determine that he was an unpredictable and abnormal offender. Local police conducted an extensive investigation and ultimately arrested a man named Strubert, who was diagnosed with a mental illness. This man took responsibility for all of Kürten's crimes and was convicted, temporarily bringing relief to the community. However, that relief did not last long. In August 1929, a new series of victims emerged in Düsseldorf, all of whom had been attacked with a knife and died from blood loss. Peter Kürten approached a young woman named Maria Hahn, whom he described as a girl looking for marriage. On August 11th, he took her to the Neanderthal district of Düsseldorf under the guise of a date. When they reached a secluded field, Kürten suddenly attacked Maria Hahn. She pleaded for her life, but he was amused by her fear. He repeatedly assaulted her chest and head, restrained her to make breathing difficult, and even sat on her body to observe her reactions. After enduring an hour of torture, Maria Hahn gradually lost consciousness and showed no signs of life. Fearing that his wife would suspect him due to bloodstains on his clothes, Kürten decided to hide her body in a cornfield. However, weeks later, he returned to the crime scene with the intention of staging a terrifying scene to attract public attention with a fake crucifixion. Due to difficulties in moving the body, he was forced to abandon his plan and left the corpse at the original location. Later, Peter Kürten returned to the burial site, embracing and caressing Maria Hahn's corpse. In the following weeks, he frequently visited the grave, clearing weeds and feeling satisfaction as he thought about the victim's body. 3 months after the Maria Hahn case, Kürten sent an anonymous letter to the police. In the letter, Peter Kürten confessed to the crime and included a rough map indicating the burial site of Maria Hahn. On November 15, 1929, police found Maria Hahn's body exactly as described in the letter. After murdering Maria Hahn, Peter Kürten changed his modus operandi and used different weapons to mislead the police into believing multiple perpetrators were at large. This period marked an escalation in his level of danger and deviant behavior. In the early morning of August 21st, Kürten carried out 3 consecutive knife attacks on 3 victims. All 3 survived and reported that the attacker did not say a word before striking. 3 days later, at the Fleay fairground, Kürten followed 2 foster sisters, a 5-year-old girl and a 14-year-old girl, as they walked home from the fair. Peter Kürten lured the 14-year-old, Louisa Lenzen, away by promising to buy cigarettes and give her 20 pfennigs. Meanwhile, he kidnapped the 5-year-old, Gertrude Hamaker, restrained her until she lost consciousness, then killed her and hid the body in a bean field. When Lenzen returned, he repeatedly stabbed her, killing her on the spot. He then proceeded with horrific acts, demonstrating his obsession with blood and victims. The next day, Kürten approached a 27-year-old maid named Gertrude Schulte and bluntly proposed an intimate relationship. When she refused, he furiously shouted, "All right, you will pay for this," and proceeded to attack her head, neck, shoulders, and back. Fortunately, Schulte survived, but she could not provide a clear description of Peter Kürten, only estimating that he was around 40 years old. After switching from a knife to a hammer, Peter Kürten became increasingly brutal. On September 30, 1929, Kürten met Ida Reuter, a 31-year-old maid, at Düsseldorf station. Peter Kürten convinced her to accompany him to a cafe, then lured her to Hofgarten near the Rhine River. At the scene, he repeatedly struck Ida's head with a hammer. Taking advantage of Ida losing consciousness, he continued committing wrongful acts. When Ida regained consciousness and begged for mercy, he coldly continued attacking her until she stopped moving. Ida Reuter was left at the scene in critical condition. Not stopping there, at 10 p.m. on October 11, 1929, Peter Kürten approached Elisabeth Dorier, a 22-year-old maid, outside a theater. He invited her for a drink at a cafe before they boarded a train to Grafenberg. The next morning, Elisabeth was found near the Kleine Düssel River, unconscious, and she passed away a day later due to severe temporal wounds. Initial evidence at the scene suggested that Elisabeth died from a skull fracture. By late summer 1929, the shocking murders by the vampire of Düsseldorf had garnered significant national and international attention. Due to the brutality of the crimes, the diversity of victims, and the varied attack methods, both the police and the media speculated that a criminal group might be behind these crimes. The Düsseldorf police collaborated with surrounding forces, launching a nationwide investigation. Over 9,000 individuals were questioned, and 2,650 leads were thoroughly examined, but no one could be convicted. However, by the end of 1929, the Düsseldorf police still had not identified the real culprit. Until May 14, 1930, in the afternoon at Düsseldorf station, Maria Budlik, a 20-year-old woman, arrived on a train from Cologne. She was looking for a place to stay and a job, appearing confused as she stepped into an unfamiliar city. A man approached Maria Budlik with a friendly smile. "Do you need help? I know a nearby inn." Although she felt uneasy, Budlik had no other choice and agreed to follow the stranger. The man led her through deserted streets, and her anxiety grew when she realized he was not taking her to an inn as promised, but toward a dark park. As Budlik and the stranger began to argue, Peter Kürten approached them, asking if Budlik was being harassed. When Budlik nodded, the stranger panicked and left. Kürten invited Maria Budlik to his apartment on Mettmanner Straße to rest, but realizing his true intentions, she skillfully declined. Kürten calmly agreed and offered to take Budlik to a hotel, but instead he lured her into Grafenberg Forest. There, he attacked Maria Budlik. When she started screaming, Kürten released her and allowed her to leave. Lucky to escape, Budlik ran to the police station to report the crime, prompting an immediate investigation and manhunt for Peter Kürten. Realizing he could no longer escape, Kürten confessed everything to his wife, August Scharf. He admitted that he was the vampire of Düsseldorf and detailed his attacks. Wanting to secure a future for his wife, Kürten advised her to report him to the police to claim the reward money. On May 24, 1930, August Scharf followed her husband's advice and led the police to a local church, where Kürten surrendered. To everyone, Kürten was a kind, gentle neighbor who loved his wife, known for his image as a model husband. They could never have imagined that Peter Kürten was actually a serial killer. On April 13, 1931, Kürten stood trial in Düsseldorf, recounting all his attacks in an emotionless tone. He explained that his attacks on girls aged 8 to 15 were influenced by witnessing his father abusing his sisters. In the end, Peter Kürten felt no remorse for his crimes. He received 9 death sentences for murder and violent assaults. Kürten was executed by guillotine on July 2, 1931, in Cologne, Germany. The case's closure received widespread public approval. Many believed this punishment was entirely justified. The victims' families expressed grief but felt some relief, knowing that justice had been served. Thank you for following this story. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more shocking and mysterious cases. Remember, no matter how terrifying the truth is, it must be told to ensure justice is upheld. Trang Tin won an affair with a young lover. A 78-year-old man and his wife mysteriously vanish without a trace. February 2013, in Bali, New Taipei, Taiwan. An elderly couple, 78 years old, and Chang Tsui-ping, 57 years old, entered Mama Mouth Cafe. Security cameras captured their entrance at 1917, but strangely, there was no footage of them leaving. Days later, both their bodies were found floating in a nearby river. However, a bizarre twist emerged. Someone resembling Chang Tsui-ping was spotted withdrawing money from a bank. The case became increasingly complex. What really happened inside Mama Mouth Cafe that night? And who was the mysterious woman at the bank? Don't take your eyes off the screen. The investigation will uncover shocking twists and terrifying secrets you've never heard before. Like and subscribe to join us on this journey. February 19, 2013, New Taipei police received a frantic call from a man. "My parents have been missing for 3 days. Police, please help me find them." The caller was the son of businessman Chen Qinfu, 78, and Chang Tsui-ping, 57. The couple had vanished without a trace since the evening of February 16th. No one could contact them. Police immediately launched an investigation, reviewing surveillance footage. At 1917, on February 16th, the couple was seen entering Mama Mouth Cafe, but they were never seen again. This was the last known location of the couple, making it the key focus of the investigation. Mama Mouth Cafe was a familiar spot for the couple. They visited almost daily, especially Chen Qinfu, a coffee addict. Lu Pingheng, the cafe owner, was interrogated that very night. He appeared visibly nervous but insisted, "They left through the back door. Nothing happened here." Police reviewed the surveillance system and discovered a problem. The back door had no cameras. There was no way to confirm if the couple actually left. With no immediate way to verify, police had to shift their investigation elsewhere. Chen Qinfu, 78, was a successful businessman. He was a former international student at Tohoku University, Japan, earning a PhD in psychology. After leaving Japan, he moved to Okinawa, where he founded a major shopping center. But his biggest success came when he purchased 2 uninhabited islands at a bargain price. These 2 small islands later became assets worth hundreds of millions of yen, making him a true billionaire. Chang Tsui-ping, 57, was a brilliant woman, earning a PhD in environmental living studies in Japan. With financial support from her husband, she completed her studies and became an expert in hospitality management. The couple owned a luxurious villa on Longmi Road, Bali District, New Taipei City. Police checked all possible locations the couple could have visited, but found nothing. February 22, 2013, a man walking his dog near the riverbank of Grass Forest Creek made a horrifying discovery. Police arrived immediately. The body had bloated, but the cold river water had preserved it from complete decomposition. The victim was identified as Chen Qinfu. Initial examination showed no obvious signs of violence, no major injuries, but one chilling detail emerged: his lungs contained no water. In other words, Chen Qinfu did not die from drowning. He was murdered before being thrown into the river. What about Chang Sui-ping? Was she still alive, or had she met the same fate as her husband? A large-scale search was immediately launched. Police combed through every bush, waterway, and inch of land near where the first victim was found. Days passed, yet there was no sign of Chang Sui-ping. Rescue teams, divers, and officers searched every possible corner of Grass Forest Creek, but all they found was an unsettling silence. March 2, 2013, 14 days after the disappearance, Xie Yihan, manager of Mama Mouth Cafe, made a shocking public statement. Tearfully, she spoke to reporters, her voice trembling. "I'd been searching the riverbanks every day for her, and today I finally found Chang's body." Before the media frenzy, she had already reported her discovery to the police. The body was found not far from where Chen Qinfu had been discovered. However, it was in a severely decomposed state, nearly unrecognizable. Identifying the body proved difficult. It took extensive DNA testing before investigators could confirm it was indeed Chang Sui-ping. Forensic specialists began their examination. The victim's neck had multiple wounds, resembling those found on Chen Qinfu. Cause of death: massive blood loss. But that wasn't all. High levels of sedatives were found in both victims' systems. This was not a random attack. This was a meticulously planned murder. When the police checked the victim's bank transactions, they discovered something unusual. On February 27th, 5 days after Mr. Chen was found, a woman attempted to withdraw money from Chang Sui-ping's account. She carried Chang Sui-ping's ID card and bank card, requesting a large withdrawal. But something was off. The bank staff noticed that the woman appeared decades younger than Chang Sui-ping. When asked to enter the PIN, the woman repeatedly entered the wrong code, causing the transaction to be locked. Undeterred, she moved to the bank counter, presented the ID, and claimed she had been in a traffic accident, requiring plastic surgery, which made her look younger. The bank staff were not easily fooled. When asked to sign for verification, the signature did not match. She panicked and quickly left, but every action had been captured by security cameras. The police immediately reviewed the surveillance footage. What they found completely changed the course of the investigation. The woman in the video was none other than Tai Yihan, the manager of Mama Mouth Cafe. However, she had disguised herself meticulously, wearing a wig, heavy makeup to look older, and dark glasses to conceal her face. This was no longer a simple missing persons case. This was a meticulously planned murder, and Tai Yihan became the primary suspect. Despite the substantial evidence, the police did not immediately arrest Tai Yihan. They wanted to gather more data to ensure there were no gaps in their case. However, on March 6, 2013, the case unexpectedly made headlines in a major newspaper. Married couple murdered and disposed of, cafe manager suspected as the killer. The shocking headline caught the attention of the entire Taiwanese public. The article not only delved into the mysterious deaths of Chen Qinfu and his wife, but also exposed Tai Yihan's attempt to withdraw money from Chang Sui-ping's account after her disappearance. The public erupted in controversy. Speculations and theories spread across newspapers and social media, with countless discussions on the suspect's true motives. Early in the morning of March 6th, when Lu Pinghong, the owner of Mama Mouth Cafe, opened the shop, he was immediately surrounded by a swarm of reporters. They bombarded him with questions about Tai Yihan's connection to the case. He was shocked and insisted he did not believe his manager was capable of such a crime. Shareholder Wu Shicheng also spoke in defense of Tai Yihan, claiming that she had been working normally and showed no suspicious behavior. But when a reporter presented CCTV footage from the bank showing her disguised attempt to withdraw money from Chang Cui-ping's account, the situation took a drastic turn. With irrefutable evidence, the defense of Lu Pinghong and Ou Shicheng became meaningless. People in the area grew suspicious, and loyal customers of Mama Mouth Cafe no longer felt comfortable visiting the establishment. At 7 a.m. on March 7th, the police cordoned off Mama Mouth Cafe, executing a search warrant and collecting all potential evidence related to the case. The cafe owner Lu Pinghong, shareholders Wu Shicheng and Zheng Dianfeng, 6 employees, and most notably Tai Yihan and her boyfriend, were all taken to the police station for questioning. Throughout the interrogation, Tai Yihan showed no signs of panic or fear. She remained eerily calm and even denied all allegations related to the murders. Not only did she assert her innocence, but she also blamed the cafe owner, Lu Pinghong. According to Tai Yihan, it was actually Lu Pinghong who masterminded the crime. She claimed that he was drowning in financial debt and needed a large sum of money to keep the cafe afloat. She alleged that he saw an opportunity in Chen Qinfu's massive fortune and decided to eliminate the couple. According to the version of events spun by Tai Yihan, Lu Pinghong and 2 other shareholders meticulously planned the crime. On the evening of February 16th at 7 p.m., following Lu Pinghong's orders, she called Chen Qinfu and Chang Cui-ping, inviting them to the cafe for a celebration of the owner's child's 1-month birthday. The moment the victims arrived, Tai Yihan secretly laced their drinks with sedatives. As Chen Qinfu and his wife lost consciousness, Lu Pinghong took the opportunity to coerce them into transferring assets under the pretense of needing collateral for a loan. The unconscious couple was then loaded into a vehicle and transported to a remote area near Grass Forest River. There, 2 other cafe shareholders brandished knives, threatening the couple and demanding the pins to their bank accounts. Soon after, following Lu Pinghong's orders, Tai Yihan was instructed to go to the bank and withdraw money from Chang Cui-ping's account. Tai Yihan claimed that she had no intention of killing anyone. She insisted that she was merely following her boss's plan, unaware that the couple had already been brutally murdered. The police examined this testimony, but there were too many contradictions and inconsistencies. When asked why she later impersonated Chang Cui-ping to withdraw money, Tai Yihan failed to provide a reasonable explanation. Why did she calmly appear on the media, actively searching for the victim's body, if she was merely following orders? Lu Pinghong and the 2 other shareholders immediately rejected all accusations. They were visibly shocked upon hearing Tai Yihan's statements. All 3 firmly denied any involvement in the murder. To understand Tai Yihan's true motives, the police began digging deeper into her background. She was born in 1995 and graduated in consulting management from Changgung University. Aside from her main job, she was also a freelance artist. However, it was at Mama Mouth Cafe that she truly established herself. Initially, Tai Yihan was just a part-time employee, but within a short period, thanks to her exceptional skills, she quickly rose to the position of manager. In 2012, a year before the crime, Mama Mouth Cafe and its manager Tai Yihan were featured in a Taiwanese food documentary. In the footage, Chen Qinfu also appeared, praising the cafe's service. Mr. Chen was seen engaging in unusually friendly conversations with Tai Yihan. But a year later, the same man was found dead at the bottom of a river, and the woman he once praised became the prime suspect. On March 9th, 2 days after her arrest, Taiyihan unexpectedly changed her testimony. She no longer denied withdrawing money from the victim's account. She admitted that she had found Cai Suiping's wallet and, out of greed, used the deceased's bank card to withdraw money. However, she still adamantly denied any involvement in the murders of Chen Qinfu and his wife. During this time, the Shilin District Court granted Lu Pinghong bail at 3 million NTD, O Shicheng at 500,000 NTD, and Zhang Dianfeng at 300,000 NTD. Upon leaving the court, Lu Pinghong insisted on his innocence. He declared that he would continue operating the cafe once the case was resolved. To do so, he began collecting financial records, travel logs, security camera footage, and all possible evidence to prove his lack of involvement. Meanwhile, Taiyihan once again changed her testimony. This was already her third version of events. In her new statement, she admitted to poisoning Chen Suiping's coffee. But what was most chilling, she claimed that this was all part of Chen Qinfu's plan. According to her, Chen Qinfu wanted to kill his wife to sever ties and take full control of her assets. He lured his wife to the riverbank, promising to have an honest conversation, but in reality, he had planned to kill her. Meanwhile, Taiyihan was instructed to return to the cafe, leaving the couple by the river. Around 11 p.m., Chen Qinfu contacted her, saying, "Everything is done." He then invited her to drink celebratory liquor, but when she was about to take a sip, she noticed an unusual powder in her glass. Immediately, she switched her drink with Chen Qinfu's. Minutes later, Mr. Chen began showing signs of poisoning. Realizing that he would not forgive her once he recovered, she decided to strike first. This revelation led police to question the entire narrative. Was Chen Qinfu really planning to kill his wife, or was this just a fabrication by Taiyihan to mislead investigators? Meanwhile, Lu Pinghong continued collecting evidence to prove his innocence. He presented a crucial piece of evidence: attendance records and CCTV footage. According to records, on the night of February 16th, Taiyihan left the cafe at 10:44 p.m. But in a surveillance video recorded at 1:14 a.m. the next morning, she returned wearing different clothes, shorts, and a thin top, despite the freezing winter weather. This behavior was highly suspicious. A cafe employee testified that on that night, he saw Taiyihan washing her feet inside the store and requesting a new set of clothes. Her entire body was soaked. When asked, she only said she had dropped something into the river. But the police did not believe it was merely a coincidence. On March 16th, the police conducted a search of Taiyihan's apartment and her boyfriend's residence. Inside, they found 18 pieces of valuable jewelry, which Taiyihan could not have afforded on her own. In a hidden safe at her boyfriend's house, police discovered several belongings of the victims: passbooks, ID cards, personal seals, handbags, and even a wig, clearly used as a disguise when trying to withdraw money. The evidence was undeniable. Taiyihan was the sole perpetrator. The police officially ruled out suspicions against Lu Pinghong, Bu Shicheng, and Zhang Dianfeng. The Mama Mouth Cafe had its lockdown lifted, but the public no longer saw it as just a cafe. It had become a symbol of one of the most shocking murder cases. Initially, the police suspected Taiyihan's boyfriend was involved. However, after a thorough investigation, they found he had no knowledge of her murder plan. On the night of the crime, he had no contact with Taiyihan and had a strong alibi. On April 12th, the Shilin District Prosecutor's Office formally charged Taiyihan with 5 serious offenses, including murder and asset misappropriation. Prosecutors sought the maximum penalty, the death sentence. While in custody, Taiyihan once again changed her statement. This was the 4th time. She claimed that she had known Chen Qinfu since 2009, when she first started working at the cafe. Mr. Chen, upon learning about her difficult background, her father had passed away, her sister was studying abroad, and her mother struggled alone in Kaohsiung, offered to help her financially, even paying for her rent. The apartment she shared with her boyfriend was actually rented by Mr. Chen. Initially, he proposed adopting her as his foster daughter, but never made it official. By 2010, Chen Qinfu began teaching her about stock investments, transferring large sums of money into her account for trading. Over the next 3 years, the total amount he had given her reached 940,000 NTD. He frequently gifted her jewelry and even allowed her to take valuable items from his safe freely. Inside his safe, there were passbooks and jewelry worth over 400 million NTD. The extravagant gifts fueled Tihan's greed, especially as she was preparing for marriage and in dire need of money. On February 16, 2013, she invited the couple to the cafe, using the excuse that Lu Pinghong was hosting a 1-month-old baby celebration. However, when they arrived, there was no party. She served them coffee and beer, both laced with ground tranquilizers. Chan Cuiping quickly collapsed on the table. Chen Qinfu also started losing consciousness. She gently told her foster father that she would escort his wife home first. Leading Chang Cuiping about 100 meters away, she forced her to reveal her bank account password. Then, without hesitation, she ended her life. Returning to the cafe, she found Chen Qinfu still semi-conscious. Without any hesitation, she killed him too. She then took all their documents, bank cards, and personal seals before leaving. 5 days later, she attempted to withdraw money. But when the bank rejected her withdrawal due to incorrect passwords, she decided to impersonate Chan Cuiping to empty the safe deposit box. That was precisely what the bank's security cameras captured. Between 2013 and 2017, the case went through 4 trials. In the first 3 trials, Tihan was sentenced to death. However, in the 4th trial, the court considered mitigating factors. She had lost her father young, had no prior criminal record, and had demonstrated good behavior while in detention. The final verdict was delivered on April 20, 2017, life imprisonment. Although her guilt was confirmed, the true nature of her relationship with Chen Qinfu remained a mystery. Was it really just a foster father-daughter relationship? Mama Mouth Cafe remained open, but it could never escape the shadow of the infamous case. This video concludes here. Thank you for watching.